Ethan, don't be ridiculous. It's just a party. Vanessa's voice came through my laptop speakers just after midnight, followed by a burst of drunken. I sat frozen at the small desk upstairs in the lakeside cabin while my friends celebrated my Bakilo's cloud account had appeared seconds earlier. Then the live feed opened. Vanessa stood in the middle of her bachelorette party holding a drink, surrounded by women who knew, "I hope my ex actually comes," she giggled. "I shaved everywhere for him." Her friends howled. My hand tightened around the edge of the desk. Hours earlier, I had overheard the same joke while Vanessa was getting ready. I had convinced myself. Now I was watching it happen live. And then one of her bridesmaids suddenly pointed toward the front door. The guest of honor just arrived. Vanessa practically ran toward him. I couldn't see the doorway clearly because her phone had been left on the kitchen counter, but I recognized his voice, her ex. For months, I had trusted Vanessa completely. At 50, I wasn't interested in checking phones. Mon at a construction company had built a stable life. Vanessa knew that. She also knew I had paid most of the wedding expenses and reorganized my entire future around our ma downstairs. One of my friends shouted, "Ethan, you coming back?" In a minute. I closed the bedroom door. On screen, Vanessa's ex moved deeper into the party while her friends welcomed him like they had been. That was when something changed inside me. I didn't call her. I didn't send an angry message. I pulled a notebook from my bag and wrote 4 things: wedding vendors, bank accounts, guest notifications, venue contracts. If Vanessa thought she could betray me tonight and wake up tomorrow expecting breakfast in bed before it was about to happen, then the live stream camera shifted. Vanessa disappeared from the main room with her ex, and seconds later the screen captured something I could never explain away. I stared at the screen without blinking. Vanessa and her ex had disappeared down a hallway while the bridesmaids suddenly became very inters. One woman laughed as another guest asked, "Where'd Vanessa go?" "Relax," a bridesmaid replied, waving her drink. "She'll be back." Looked surprised. Nobody looked uncomfortable. That realization hit me harder than anything I'd heard all night. This wasn't a reckless decision made after too many drinks. They all knew they were helping her. I leaned back in my chair and for the first time that night looked away from the screen. My mind replayed the last year, the times Vanessa turned her phone over whenever a certain name flashed across it, the afternoon I'd asked, "You still talk to your ex?" She had smiled, kissed my cheek, and answered, "Only once in a while. We're adults, Ethan." I believed her. Then there was the dinner where she became strangely defensive after I admitted I wasn't comfortable. "You either trust me or you don't," she'd said. I chose trust. Now every conversation sounded different. Every explanation had another meaning. I picked up my phone and called my attorney. He answered on the second ring. "Ethan, everything all right?" "No." There was a long silence before I continued. "I need to know exactly what wedding contracts can still be canceled before morning." He didn't interrupt. He simply asked, "Is this about Vanessa?" "Yes." "Do you have proof?" I looked back at the laptop. I'm watching it happen. Within minutes, he was checking contracts while I opened every folder related to the wedding: deposits, vendor agreements, insurance, payment schedules. I wasn't planning revenge. I was making sure I didn't wake up legally tied to someone who had already abandoned the relationship. Downstairs, footsteps came up the stairs. A knock followed. My best friend Mark called through the door. "You've been gone nearly an hour." I opened the door just enough for him to see my face. He frowned immediately. "What happened?" I hesitated before answering. "I don't think tomorrow is going to be my wedding day." His expression changed. "What are you talking about?" "I'll explain later." Mark started asking more questions, but I quietly closed the door again. Back at the desk, the live stream continued. Vanessa walked back into view. She was fixing her lipstick using the front-facing camera. Without realizing it was still broadcasting, she smiled toward someone standing just outside the frame. Then she leaned sideways. I couldn't see the kiss itself, but I saw enough. Her eyes closed. She smiled afterward. Then she disappeared down the hallway again with the same man. I slowly closed my notebook. Every decision I had struggled with only minutes earlier became easy. The wedding was over. Just before dawn, another notification flashed across my screen. Someone from the party had accidentally uploaded a new video. The uploaded video finished processing. My finger hovered over the play button for only a second before I clicked it. Unlike the accidental live stream from the kitchen counter, this recording had been taken from only a Vanessa stood with her ex in the center of the room, her arms wrapped around his neck, as if no one, either bridesmaids, circled them with raised glasses. Then one of them laughed loud enough for the phone to capture every word. Tomorrow you'll still marry Ethan, but tonight belongs to your real love. Cheers erupted across the room. Someone clapped. Another woman whistled. Vanessa didn't pull away. She smiled. She looked completely comfortable being celebrated for betraying me. I paused the video. There was nothing left to question. No explanation would erase what I had just watched. No apology could change the fact that this had been planned. I opened my contacts and began making calls. The wedding venue answered first. Good morning. Lakeside Grand Events. This is Ethan Heavy. I need to cancel today's wedding reservation immediately. Coordinator paused. Sir, are you certain? I am. She quietly explained the cancellation procedure while I confirmed my identity and authorized the PA1 call became 5, the florist, the caterer, the photographer, the limousine company, the honeymoon travel agency. Every reservation had been booked under my name and paid from my accounts. Each conversation ended exactly the same way. Cancel everything. As the eastern sky began to brighten outside the cabin windows, confirmation emails started arriving canceled, 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 canceled. Each notification felt less like revenge and more like closing a door that should never have been the last vendor confirmed. I drafted one final message. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't dramatic. I sent it only to our immediate families. The wedding scheduled for today has been canceled. I'll explain later with evidence. Please do not. Within seconds my phone exploded. His mother called, my sister called, Vanessa's father called. Even my uncle, who rarely used his phone, left 2 voicemails asking what had happened. I answered none of them. There was nothing I could explain until I was ready to prove every word. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, Vanessa was still asleep after her bachelorette party. She had no idea the venue staff were locking the ballroom. The florist had already turned the delivery truck around. The photographer had removed our wedding from the day's schedule. Guests who arrived early to help decorate found cancellation notices posted at the entrance. Confusion spread almost immediately. Rumors followed even faster. Nobody knew why the wedding had vanished overnight. I gathered the printed screenshots from the live stream, the downloaded video, and every cancellation. Then I placed the engagement ring back into its velvet box. Before I could seal the envelope, my phone lit up with Vanessa's name. I answered. There wasn't even a greeting. Her voice exploded through the speaker. Ethan, why is everyone saying there's no wedding? I didn't answer immediately. I let the silence sit between us. Ethan, Vanessa snapped. Are you listening? I am. Then tell me what's going on. My mother is calling nonstop. The venue isn't answering. The florist, I'll be home in 30 minutes. Hang up on me. I ended the call. For the first time since the live stream began, I felt completely calm. The panic belonged to her now. By the time I pulled into the driveway, Vanessa's car was already there. She was packing across the front porch, still wearing yesterday's party clothes beneath an oversized eye, but traces of glitter still clung to her hair. The moment she saw me, she stormed toward me. What is wrong with you? She demanded. People are saying our wedding is canceled. I walked past her without answering. The house, everything was exactly where I'd left it. Except one thing, the future we'd built together no longer existed. I placed my keys on the kitchen counter and nodded toward the dining table. There, she turned. The engagement ring rested neatly inside its velvet box. Beside it sat a thick folder. Across the front I'd written 4 simple words. Asterisk, asterisk, before you say anything. Asterisk, asterisk, what is this? She asked. Open it. She laughed nervously. Seriously, is this some kind of punishment because I had too much to drink? I folded my arms. Open it. Vanessa flipped open the folder. The first page showed a screenshot from the accidental live stream. Her smile faded. She turned to the second page, another screenshot. The third, the fourth, each one carried the exact timestamp across the top. I can explain. Turning, she swallowed. The next section contained printed confirmation emails from the venue, caterer, florist, photograph. Every service had been canceled. Every confirmation carried my name. Her breathing became shallow. No, there are more pages. Her hands started shaking as she reached the final section. A printed QR code linked to the uploaded party video. Underneath it was a still image of her embracing her ex while her bridesmaids cheered. She stared at it without speaking. Then she whispered, This isn't what it looks like. I looked directly at her. Then tell me what it looks like. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Because for the first time since we'd met, there wasn't a believable lie left to tell. A doorbell rang. Vanessa jumped. Who is that? I invited everyone who deserved the truth. She rushed toward the window. My parents? Another car pulled into the driveway, then another. My brother stepped out, her father followed. Within minutes, both families quietly entered the house. No one was smiling. No one was shouting. They had all received the same message. Everyone gathered in the living room. Vanessa looked around desperately. Ethan, don't do this. I carried my laptop to the television. Without saying a word, I connected the HDMI cable. The accidental live stream filled the screen. Nobody interrupted it. Nobody defended her. The room watched her laugh. They heard her tell her friends she hoped her ex would come because she'd spent the day preparing. They watched her run toward the front door when he arrived. Then they saw the uploaded video, the embrace, the cheering, the bridesmaid's voice. Tomorrow you'll still marry Ethan, but tonight belongs to your real love. Silence swallowed the room. Vanessa's mother slowly lowered her head into her hands. Her father sat motionless, unable to look at either of us. One bridesmaid who had arrived with the family quietly stood up, grabbed her purse, and walked out. Vanessa pulled out her phone with trembling fingers and tried calling her ex. Once, twice, 3 times. Every call went unanswered. She stared at the screen in disbelief. The one man she'd risked everything for had already disappeared. She looked back at me, tears finally breaking through. Ethan. Please. I stood up from my chair, looked around the room, then calmly said the only words that still mattered. This isn't the end of my life. I paused. It was the end of a lie. No one spoke after I finished. The television screen faded to black, but the silence in the room said more than another hour of arg. Vanessa finally stepped toward me, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan. It didn't mean anything. I looked at her for a long moment. It meant enough for you to invite him. She lowered her eyes. It meant enough for you to joke about it with your friends. She tried to interrupt. It meant enough for you to spend the day preparing for him. A tear rolled down her cheek. And it meant enough for you to expect me to marry you the very next morning. She had no answer. Her father slowly stood. He looked at his daughter, then at me. I'm sorry, he said quietly. You didn't deserve this. I nodded once. I know. Her mother began crying softly, not because the wedding had been canceled, but because there was no watched the same footage. They had all heard Vane. There was nothing left to debate. Vanessa reached for my hand. I made a terrible mistake. I stepped back. No, she looked up. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is taking the wrong exit on the highway. I gestured toward the folder on the table. Inviting your ex, celebrating it with your friends, disappearing with him. Then planning to M. That wasn't one mistake. That was a series of choices. Her shoulders slumped. For the first time since we had met, she stopped trying to defend herself. Over the next several days, I finished untangling our lives. Every shared financial account was closed or separated. Because I had purchased my home before our engagement, it remained mine. The refundable wedding deposits were returned to my accounts. The money that couldn't be recovered before a marriage is far less costly than my attorney handled the remaining paperwork. There were no dramatic court battles, no shouting matches, just signatures and finality. Vanessa packed her belongings and moved out before the end of the week. The ex she had risked everything for never came back, according to mutual friends. He stopped answering her calls almost immediately after word spread Thant disappeared and real consequences arrived. So several bridesmaids contacted me privately. Each apology sounded different, but everyone carried the same admission. We thought you'd never find out. I thanked them for finally telling the truth, but their apologies couldn't change what they had chose. I didn't post the videos online. I didn't try to destroy Vanessa's career or publicly humiliate her. The people directly involved already knew exactly why the wedding had ended. That was enough. Truth has a way of traveling without being pushed. 3 months later, I drove back to the same lakeside cabin where my bachelor weekend had begun. This time there were no wedding plans, no countdown, no speeches waiting downstairs. I carried only a small backpack and the same laptop that had changed my life. I sat on the porch overlooking the lake as the evening sun settled across the water. For a while, I simply listened to the quiet. Then I opened the notebook I had filled that night. The pages still listed the first 4 things I had written after seeing the live stream: wedding vendors, bank accounts, guest notifications, venue contracts. Those words had once represented the collapse of the future I thought I wanted. Now they reminded me of something else. The night I thought I had lost everything was actually the night I saved myself from marrying someone. I closed the notebook, shut the laptop, and stood. The cabin behind me no longer represented betrayal. It represented the moment I chose self-respect over denial. As I walked toward my truck, I realized I wasn't leaving behind the woman I almost married. I was leaving behind the life I almost settled for. And for the first time in a long time, the road ahead felt honest.